All right, hello everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and welcome to Atherys's 10th anniversary Q&A. I am unbelievably excited to be here after all this time, and I'm more excited still to be joined by some amazing panelists who are going to be taking your questions on the future of Aeons. My name is Emma. You're probably better known as Presalia or Prez, and I will be your host for this portion of the stream. So, without any further ado, I am going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. Zero, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I am Zero, or Will Sanders, however you know me by. I am the department head for Yora games on the Minecraft management side, and thanks for having me here.
All right, thank you for being here. Let's go to Nimi next.
Hello, I am Nimi. I am the project lead for Aeons, and thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming along. And finally, Anvil, do you want to come in next?
I do. Hi, I'm Anvil, or Oxidal Anvil from the long time before, or just Taylor, if you like. I am the creative director here at Yora Games, and thrilled to be back working on Atherys after all this time.
I think so many of us are. So I'm going to head straight over to you, Taylor. Can you tell us a little bit about, let's start off with the history of Aeons, but also of Atherys generally.
Sure, yeah. So, wow, after 10 years, it's been a long road to get to Aeons. Let's see, how much should I disclose? So, I think it's fairly well known that Atherys began its development late in 2011. I think it was mid-October. I don't quite remember. Usually I remember because we pitched it after I was doing an economics exam, but that's been way too long ago now for me to recall. A group of us had gotten together after Shadow of Gazimo fell to hackers, I think it was. We'd been planning a little bit for some updates for that RP-related server. Great times, really. And then it was lost to us, unfortunately. But that presented an opportunity, and a group of us got together and pitched to Gazimo and to Vorsk a new opportunity, and that was Atherys. I still have the old pitch document with the names on it. Those were good times. But he went for it. And we slowly, created that over about 5 months, and then got it launched there in the springtime, 10 years ago, just a couple of weeks back. And ever since then, we've been slowly working to improve the process, improve the servers that we put out. V1 obviously was a big first step. V2 came in with the crazy custom map. Evo improved all of the gameplay mechanics. And then now here with Aeons, we're back at it again, trying to give y'all a good experience, which you will hear more about as we go through this Q&A. As to the basis for Atherys, I think I can talk a little bit about that as well. The 6 nations that you're playing in Aeons are the original 6 from all of the previous servers. As you hang around here through the rest of the live stream, you're going to get more about what we have planned for the future. You'll hear about Horizons and some of those empires. And then as we continue through the rest of the year, you'll hear more from the creative team on even more about that. But you're looking at, let's see here. I may actually need some help reminding me. It's a bit early here. We've got Arsaluk, which is having a bit of a tough go at the moment. They've always been a loose collection of city-states ruled by, with an iron fist, I guess I should say, by an RP character from the central city, Kul Rahav. They have found some difficulties here in the advent, or in the wake, I should say, of some great wars, and fractured even further than they did still before, without their regent to control them. That has allowed one of the eastern states, Nandar, to separate off. So there is a 7th for the first time in Atherys Minecraft history. They're a young upstart. They're trying to make a go of it. They're definitely resolute in the way that they're going about their separation. We've also got Alare further to the east, sort of your classic Central European representation there. They had their goddess of the winds, and they were after diplomacy. And so I think even still, they stand up to that pretty well. The Empire's in pretty decent shape. There's also Ithro to the north, traditional seafaring empire. They were hit pretty hard by the wars. Their capital is pretty much gone. I think you can see that if you hop into the server. A lot of people have taken to the seas. I think things are going okay there. Maybe y'all can talk more about that. Rounding out, we still have Ravona, the old Empire of the Sun, Empire of the God of War. They did not come as cleanly through the recent RP wars as maybe their name would suggest. There's a lot of time for reflection up there right now. But they were always actually one of my favorites, even from the old servers. They were designed in V1 as basically just a place for people to go PvP. There wasn't a whole lot of story put into that, but over time, building out the narrative for Ravona and making them sort of a more social society, more respectful, like just the things that naturally emerged from those shield bonds in the server and then in the lore itself, improved that project, I think, a lot more than maybe even the other nations. Although I do have my other favorites, including my old original home, which was the Daggerlands, originally known as Monosroth, but the lore updated a number of years ago to give them a democracy and to let them have their capital city, their prison city of Monosroth, be the new shining beacon of freedom. Until there were some in-universe developments, and then they kicked off the whole war that led us to Aeons. So it's okay. They're learning from their mistakes of destroying the planet, and hopefully the players can right some wrongs in that regard. I think finally we've got Roraglow, oft forgotten but never down for the count, down there in the caves in the jungle south of Alaray. That one has also always been a personal favorite of mine. In the old days, it would typically attract a player base that was more narrative focused, more methodical. And, I obviously appreciated that. I suppose I can't speak to these days, the kind of people who live among the Logak forests, but that's okay. We're always moving on and adjusting, and I think that might be the best part across all these different servers. The nations, I can speak right to the history. I can speak to the lore of these places, but the player base itself always makes them what they will, right? You saw in Sean's keynote just there, the duck mug, which I believe is available for purchase. That duck has become more of Ithro than I would argue even the Twin Gods ever have, right? And it's that player base that takes that lore, or doesn't, and makes something special with it. And that's why we have the history that we do, and that's why we're here talking about Aeons. I think that probably just about wraps it up. I'll hand it back over to Emma.
Thanks, Taylor. And I think one of the things that I love most about Atherys broadly as a concept is how evolutionary it is, how it has changed and flowed from server to server, from nation to nation, how it's all kind of come together. And so I guess that with that, we're very much in the kind of throngs of this new iteration of Aeons. So I'm going to throw it back open to the rest of the panelists. Pretend that we have never heard of Atherys Aeons before. Tell me what kind of server you can expect from Atherys Aeons.
So the server that you can pretty much expect is an open world MMORPG. You can claim towns, you can create some. We have a couple of leveling classes from tier 1s up to tier 3s for the time being. We have a combat system as well that a lot of our developers have been really working rigorously on, making it very fluid with everybody. And just overall, just an open world PvP with some economics thrown in with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's so many different gameplay elements that make up the world of Atherys. And Nimi, do you find that variety in gameplay attracts lots of different people as well?
Yeah, I personally think it does. We have two main groups of people on the server, which are, known as RPers and PvPers, which are definitely two vastly different groups. So I would say that our server can definitely appeal to a wide audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that there have been some historical differences between those two groups, but I'm really excited to see how the different playstyles come together and merge. Let's talk a bit about PvP then. What does PvP on Aeons look like?
So the PvP on Aeons is definitely a lot different than normal Minecraft, depending on what class you are. A lot of classes have, or pretty much every class has a bunch of abilities that they can use, and they sort of all fit into an archetype. So you can sort of play any type of class that you can think of, in like a normal other games with classes, I guess. So yeah, it's sort of like Minecraft and League of Legends mixed in, sort of with the PvP. So yeah.
Sure, and I'm not a massive PvPer, but I'm really excited by the variety and the spread of different classes and what they can all do, which I think is just a really exciting place to be. And obviously they are constantly changing and evolving, and the meta is evolving, and I'm always really, really excited by that. Talk to me a bit about these classes then. What flavor do they all have?
Well, they're all sort of different. There's a bunch of different categories for the classes. So we have like knaves, which are rogue classes, which include like sort of more mobile, some of them damage dealing, some of them being more utility based, like squishier classes. We have acolytes, which are mainly like healers and support utility type classes. We have initiates, which are sort of more mage, magic-like damage dealing classes. And then we have squires, which are sort of just like more really heavy melee warrior-based classes. So again, we have sort of something for everyone in terms of our class system, and it's an infinitely progressing system, which we are permanently working on to make better. So you can expect more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's really interesting about them is that you've got those kind of three key roles of sort of damage, tank, and healer, but you're not locked into one of those kind of by your first choice, right? Like there's healer roles in all of the trees. There's support roles. There's damage roles in whichever one you fancy. So you're not locked into a role based on your first class choice, right?
Yeah, for sure. As of now, you're not really locked into it, but it is a bit restrictive right now, depending on which tree you go down. But we actually do plan on making it more free in the future with some of our future changes. So you can definitely expect to have like a more dynamic hero system soon here. So yeah.
And I think the ability to master different classes, right, to choose and to swap based on what is optimum at that point gives people so much more freedom than just having a static, or you've made your bed, now lie in it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I definitely think that Atherys is always going to have that meta, and people are always going to be switching around, and that is sort of the fun part of it, is discovering the meta and theory crafting about what's best and what's not the best and things like that. So yeah, I like that feature as well, and it will definitely stay as a part of our gameplay.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that constant shifting is part of what Atherys is all about, right? And we've got some other play styles and stuff that I think it might just be interesting to talk about. When you mentioned RP is there. Will and Nimi, do you want to talk about that, or do you want me to take on that the RP stuff?
Sure, you can talk about it a little bit if you would like.
Yeah, sure. So I mean I've been RPing on Atherys since I was a literal teenager, which feels like like an age ago now. But one of the things that really drew me into the server was the ability to dictate or to have an action and to see that effect transpire into this Minecraft world. To say, I want to build an arena, or I want to put this law into place, or I want to do this, that, or the other, and see its effects in real time. And there are so few games that allow you to have that level of freedom and that level of connection with people. And I think I'm really, really excited to see how RP becomes evolved within Aeons. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, with RP, I'm definitely not the most experienced one, but I have been sort of talking and to a lot of people who are and looking at other servers that are good for it, and trying to figure out new things that we can put on the server to, enhance the RP. So yeah, hopefully we can, help that player base out more than we have in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's always that uniqueness when it comes to Atherys lore as well, and I think that adds so much depth to not just to role playing, but to everybody's experience. Anybody can kind of jump onto a kind of combat focused thing, but to have that story behind it, I think really adds to everything that's going on. So if I wanted to play on Aeons today, what would I have to do? What would I have to do to get on?
All you would need to do was install Minecraft at 1.16.5 and above, and go to play.atherys.com in the server browser. If you want the best experience, though, I would recommend going into our Discord and finding the mod pack and downloading that and using that instead. And since it has some crucial mods that will help you in PvP.
Can you talk to me a bit about those mods? What sort of things do they include?
The main one with the mods is just going to be macros. You can use your hero skills without macros by using the skill menu feature. However, it is definitely optimal to just write some macros. So you can use your abilities with just any key on your keyboard on the fly. So yeah, that is the main one. There are a couple of others like quality of life mods in the mod pack that'll just enhance your experience, and I believe the texture pack comes with it too, which will make the game not look like default and make it look like the game that you're seeing on screen. So yep, I would definitely recommend installing it.
And it's so easy to download and install as well. I'm awful with tech and computers, but I was able to do it in like 3 seconds flat, so it's easy enough to get into. And no whitelist, right? No whitelist, just hop on in.
Yeah, yep. Anyone can play. We definitely do not think we plan on doing a whitelist in the future or anything like that. So yeah, anyone can get on the server.
The accessibility of having that whitelist free server is really enhancing. Do you agree, Will?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, it opens up to everybody. There's no real barrier wall, no real hard software that you need to just be able to, hardware that you need to just be able to jump right into the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that gives us access to a whole range of communities, a whole range of players. Like, you don't have to have a top end PC to be able to play on here with us. You don't have to, install a million different programs in order to be the best PvPer. It's just skill. It's just easy to access.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
So we've spoken a little bit about some of the gameplay features. Talk to me, maybe one of you, about some of the gameplay loops that we've got, some things that keep people engaged.
So as of now, we still have a lot of vanilla features as part of the server. So pretty much most things that you can do in vanilla, except for go to the end and kill the Ender Dragon, you can do on the server. And as of right now, the gameplay loops that most people are participating in would be leveling your class. So just killing mobs and gaining more abilities and gaining like a stronger kit is one of the main features. Building your town, essentially just joining a town or creating your own and then just building up onto it, trying to create a strong town. People who are more interested in like the economy type of thing can, gather materials and sell them to other players and make money on the server. So that's another gameplay loop. However, we do plan on like adding a lot more gameplay loops in the future, because it is definitely something as of now that the server needs improvement on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'll speak just really quickly to one of the other aspects is the politics game. The fact that there are all these nations that are vying for control and that are trying to get one up on each other, and it's not staff run, it's completely player run.
Yep.
In past iterations, right, we had staff who acted as the nation head, and we had players in kind of government roles underneath them. But for the first time now, we have entirely player run and player managed governments. I think that adds so much to experience.
Oh yeah.
So I'm really excited to see how all of those develop. We mentioned towns just a minute ago. Can somebody tell me about how the towns work?
So yeah, towns and the Towny plugin are pretty simple. Essentially, how it works is you can claim a town and it will cost you 25k of the in-game currency called Yora, or you can simply join a new town. And towns can claim land based on how many people are in the town. So each person in the town will get you 10 plots. And when you claim a plot, essentially that land cannot be edited by external sources. So people who are outside of the town cannot like mess with your stuff. So you can essentially build stuff, keep all of your gear there, and no one will be able to mess with it. So yeah, that's the main thing with towns. The reason why we have so many, beautiful builds on the server is because of this feature. Like some of the builds you're seeing now are just player claimed towns, and all are player built. So yeah, that is essentially how Towny works.
And that avoids the circumstance that Sean talked about right in the opening, right, of that griefing.
Oh yeah.
How varied are the towns? Like, do they focus on one play style? How big are they? Like, what can we expect from that?
So I would say right now a lot of towns seem to be in the mindset of like RP town or PvP town. In the future, I really hope to promote both of those players teaming up into the same town. But yeah, a lot of the towns will end up picking a specific nation and then building their build based off of the block palette of the nation. So, if you go to different nations, you'll see a ton of different town styles and different builds from each of the block palettes. And yeah, that is basically how it goes as of now.
Yeah, absolutely. We spoke about sort of the economy game a little bit a moment ago about people buying and selling resources. There's taxes on the server, right? There's ways for people to incentivize those taxes. Sorry. You want to walk me through those?
So yeah, as of now, the taxes are temporarily turned off, but essentially the point of them is to sort of have a reason for people to keep gaining money on the server. Your towns will be taxed depending on how much land they've claimed, and that tax will sort of go to the nation, which are again all player run, and then they can distribute those funds how they wish. But yeah, it's essentially just a way to keep players playing and gaining money, have a reason to have money, and sort of encourage people to team up together so that they can build a big town, but at the same time not have to spend hours and hours on the server just grinding money. So it encourages the community aspect, which is above all the most important thing on the server.
I think that was a bit of a concern right at the server launch, right? Was the worry of having to grind for hours and hours just to keep your town afloat, and I'm really glad to see that is being actively worked on, and that as we kind of look towards the future, governments will be able to use that money to finance national projects. So whether that's arenas, whether that's theatres, whether it's huge build projects or armies or whatever it might be, that is all kind of coming round in kind of a loop unto itself, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely hope we can encourage some good stuff going on with that. And I definitely want in the future as well for there to be, we sort of plan to have ways for towns to sort of end up taking the taxes from the nation. So a town could, potentially conquer another town and then they would temporarily gain their taxes and stuff like that. So yeah, we hope to expand on that in the future and bolster the economy, because right now it's not in the best spot, but we're definitely working on it, and we want it to be again a robust player run thing that is fun to interact with and have merchants and merchants guilds and stuff like that.
So you said there about kind of people conquering towns. Can you talk to me a little bit about how the PvP toggle works at the moment?
So yeah, currently the way that the PvP toggle works is essentially towns can just choose to have PvP on or not. In the future, we are sort of going to rework that in a way. It will still exist, but again, it will be reworked. And we can sort of we'll go over that a little bit more later. But essentially, there will be like peaceful towns and warring towns, and warring towns will be able to waltz over to another town and potentially take them over. Obviously, it doesn't mean that they can break any of their blocks or anything of that nature. Nothing like that is going to be added to the server, but you can essentially take over another town, and then you'll be able to sort of siphon some of their resources and things like that. So that's sort of some of the stuff that we have coming in the future with Townie and what we hope to do with the economy as well.
Again, I think that kind of constant shifting and changing of Atherys is really kind of what makes it a fun server to play on. Is kind of one, especially with the kind of new lore that's been released about the war that has gone on. Being part of that rebuilding process is really exciting. There's lots of staff, right? And we met some of them earlier. How does staff get involved? What kind of staff involvement do we have? Will, do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, sure. So staff is around, more or less about 24/7 for the amount of people that we have. Usually just for the basic needs of the server and as to handle and make sure player events run smoothly. But we try to just do whatever we can to have y'all around in general.
And staff are based all over the world, right? Like it's not just a US centric.
No, we have
team.
multiple people in I think 5 or 6 different time zones. Some in I think Europe as well. So yeah, we try to get as many time zones as we can, so we have some staff 24/7.
And it's really lovely to have that level of support because it means that any new player, any existing player that has a problem, a question, can usually get an answer pretty quickly, or at least we hope so. That's what we aim for.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what any server owner could ask for.
Yeah. And talk to me a little bit about these events then. We've got some player-run events, but do we also have staff-led events?
So yeah, we do have staff-led events. We hope to sort of increase the amount of events we're doing on the server and also increase the type of events. So we want to have events that cater towards our peers and PvPers, or maybe both at the same time. So yeah, we will definitely be working on having often events, fun events that give good content and things like that. One of the recent ones was the Labyrinth event, which was quite successful. I think it was a really good time. So things like that, yeah.
I remember back in the days of V1 and V2, which is when I kind of had my heyday of playing, that some of the best fun was the not just the one-off events, but like the long series events that had connecting stories and connecting events that had an impact on each other. Can we expect something like that from the future?
So yeah, we definitely can. We already have had some events that have affected some of the lore that players have run. So we can definitely do that as a staff team as well, and we are sort of working on events that affect the lore. For example, the Labyrinth again was an event that had some new lore tied in to do with some stuff with Ravona and some of the gods. I'm not too versed on the lore personally, but yeah, we'll definitely get that sort of stuff going more. I think it's really interesting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pumped for it. And are there custom items in Aeons? And if there are, what do they look like?
So yeah, we just recently introduced custom items. The first ones being sort of glacial weapons, which are ice weapons, and they have a very simple ability of they just do more damage to mobs. But the really cool thing about them is they sort of introduce the concept for the first time in the Atherys like vanilla experience of custom textures into the game. So these weapons are technically a netherite sword or a netherite axe or a netherite hoe, but they all look quite different. For example, the hoe is like a mage's staff now. So that was just sort of us, dipping our toe in the water and getting things tested, and we're going to heavily expand on that in the future. So things like custom items are going to be a huge part of the server, with the next update we have coming out.
I think that really is something that can tie in or bring together RPers and PvPers alike, right? Like you can have these items that are, the best sword or the best stuff, whatever it is, but also have a story behind that, have a bit of lore written behind it that kind of adds that extra flavor to it.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think that that's really interesting as well, and I definitely want to add lore to the items and things like that. And we have some people who are working on stuff like that, but we definitely are looking for more as well. So if any of you guys watching really like the lore, then send me a message on Discord.
Come and join us. Come and join the lore team. It's great.
Absolutely.
So we've talked a bit about items. What about enchantments and potions?
So yeah, as of now, we have a couple enchants and potions enabled. However, we plan to sort of replace that system with something more in depth and different than just the vanilla experience. As of now, some of the enchants are definitely a balance issue on the server, so we do hope to sort of fix that soon and then expand on it later. But as of now, like we do have a custom potion on the server right now, so that's again us dipping our toes in the water of what's possible in the future, and we can also do custom enchants as well, which I think we have one. So yeah, we're definitely going to replace them and make them more more involved than the vanilla experience with that.
I tell you what, I do not envy the heroes balancing team when you start to introduce custom enchants and potions. I'll stick with my lore, and you guys can handle all of that. So we've had a bit of a chat about what's currently going on. We've had a chat about what's gone on in the past. Let's look towards the future. What are your? I'll come to Will first. What are your goals for Aeons over the next month, year, decade, whatever it might be?
At least for the foreseeable future, our goal is to at least hit 200 concurrent players, just in general, and then just have standard updates to go out in some timely fashion is what we hope for. But we try to do our best in what we can do. But yeah, having more end game content as well for the players that find themselves more bored and want to do more stuff in general. As well as just having more of an arsenal of custom content like items and mobs.
It sounds like one hell of a checklist.
Oh yeah, it's a big checklist.
Yeah, and I remember kind of the days of older servers where we were getting 200 players on. So I think that potential is still so there, it's so ripe. It just we have to get those pieces right to get them all back together.
Yeah.
How about you, Nimi? What are your goals?
So yeah, I sort of agree with him. We're sort of aligned on most of the goals. I'm definitely mostly focused right now on sort of updating the game from a dev standpoint to have more modern game loops and things that are more fun for our older player base now. A lot of people have been around for a long time, so with that, standards increase. And obviously, we still want to bring in a new player base, but Minecraft has been around for a long time, and since V1 came out, there's I think collectively the community of just gamers in general expect more. So that's my main focus right now is just updating the game to have more fun things to do and be more appealing to an audience of current players.
I think the Atherys community can be passionate, I think is a good word to describe them.
They can be very passionate, yes.
Yeah. There's the I don't know if any of you have seen Parks and Rec, but the fantastic scene of one of the characters being shouted at by a load of people, and it's just, she describes it as having people caring very loudly at her. And I think that's what we have. But I would take that any day over a player base that didn't care, that wasn't invested, that didn't share their genuine thoughts and feelings, because the only way that we can improve as an organization, as a server, as a brand is by having people that care enough about the product to tell us what's wrong.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I definitely think that we have a good community, and I think a lot of people are, a loud minority. But I definitely think a lot of our community is just sort of patiently waiting for us to update the server to a more modern standpoint, and they'll start playing again. I definitely have a lot of faith in our community, and I think that they have a lot of loyalty to Atherys and the entire brand in general. So I'm hopeful for the future personally.
Yeah, and I think that comes both from the player base, but also, I mean, I'm not part of the Aeon staff team, but it's part of that as well. It's the the faith in the staff. We have some really genuinely talented and skilled people working on this project. And I think when the pieces are in place, when we've got that kind of constant stream of updates, I guess the elephant in the room, right, is that server population is a little bit on the lower side. But I think we are in prime position right now to really kickstart that again. I mean, we've got, 200 odd people watching the stream, just a little bit less than. So it's the community is there, they're ready, they need that little bit of bait.
Yep. I completely agree with that.
So on that bait then, we've spoken a bit about some of those general overarching goals, but what actually specific goals are you both looking at?
So yeah, for the next update that we're looking at, which will hopefully, draw in our population again, was one of the main things I touched on earlier was townie wars. So people do, I guess, go to war technically in RP. However, we wanted to create a system in game to help like get that along and to help encourage PvP. So townie wars will be one of those things, and again, you will be able to start wars with other towns where you guys will actually be fighting over something meaningful in the server, other than just the items that someone will drop. So things like Yora, you'll be able to gain from winning a war. You'll be able to gain items from the generation of the towns, things like that. So I think that is going to be a feature that really helps PvP on the server. And I think it will encourage people who are less inclined to PvP to like try to learn as well. Because it's sort of just like a thing where if you don't try to help your town, or at least try to recruit PvPers to be in your town, then you're going to suffer a little bit, or your nation's going to suffer because they're losing money. So then it becomes a political thing because, you have no PvPers in your town and you didn't really mix well with the community. So, now you're being punished for it. So I sort of see it as not forcing either player base to conform to one gameplay loop, but sort of trying to encourage them to mix together so that they can, play the server together instead of having the whole thing as of now where they're just like PvP towns and RP towns. I personally really want to move away from that separation. The next thing is conquest points, which would essentially be points on the map, which will be like announced, and players will fight over those points, and whoever wins that fight will gain some loot. So essentially, players will sort of just run over to the point of interest, and then they will fight, and eventually they will see who wins that loot. And next thing is the dungeons, which are going to be sort of, you can find a dungeon on the map, and there will be a bunch of really cool mobs inside of the dungeons, really cool drops. And you'll have to find a key to the dungeon, which encourages people to level and kill mobs and things like that to eventually have the mob drop the key. And we're still in the early idea phase of how we want that stuff to work, but the keys were one of our early ideas. And obviously, when you have the mix of the new items as well, that is also part of the dungeons and leveling in general, where as you kill mobs, they will drop custom crafting materials, and each player will be able to choose sort of what type of items that they want to craft. And you will use those crafting materials to craft like specific items that do specific things. So there will be, like out of combat utility type items, which builders specifically have been asking for that type of stuff for a long time. So, there'll be items to help builders. There'll be items to help people, get across the map faster. There'll be items that help you kill mobs faster. Really looking at a ton of things with that. And then all of that sort of tied together will lead to more satisfying leveling. Because right now leveling is quite boring. There's not really many stepping stones for leveling. And hopefully all of those systems sort of mixed together will help make the leveling a lot more fun, since you'll be getting those custom crafting materials and upgrading your crafting profession over time and gaining access to those custom items and things like that. So yeah, that's sort of what we're looking to go for. It's a lot of information, but it is just the surface, honestly, of what we're looking to do with the server.
Absolutely, and I know I've said this phrase so many times during the session, but I am genuinely filled with excitement by all of the stuff that is going on. I'm conscious of time. I'm going to need to wrap up soon, but I'm going to ask you both one surprise question before we close off. What is your favourite thing about Aeons?
Zero, you start.
My favorite thing about Aeons? I guess my favorite thing about Aeons is just the massive amount of the community that has stayed over the last 10 years and has been very dedicated and very vocal about everything they do. They're very involved, and we try to listen to everything that we can and add anybody's ideas, but definitely the community.
Wow, thanks very much. And Nimi?
Yeah, my personal favorite thing about Aeons, I guess, would be I really like the PvP system. That was originally what drew me into the server, was the large groups of PvP and the abilities aspect. So that's my personal favorite. But obviously, I've grown to really love developing the server and just trying to help it out and creating new content. So yeah, that's it for me.
Well, thank you both so much, and thank you to Taylor for his guest appearance at the start. And thank you to everybody who has tuned in. I will hand you back over now to the rest of the team. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. See you later.